And a very cordial welcome to another edition of Conversation Collage, coming to you now from Wenatchee-Wa, USA, the apple capital of the world, the buckle of the power belt of the great Northwest. And I'm Ken Johannesson. Glad to have you aboard for this edition, which is a part two of a conversation that we had with Michele Sullivan. If you listened to our last podcast, and if you haven't, why haven't you? You should go on and listen to it, because we talk about Michele Sullivan, who's a very interesting lady, born with a rare form of dwarfism. She has spent her life looking up. As a matter of fact, that's the name of her book, Looking Up, the story of how she became the smallest woman at the largest earth-moving manufacturer in the world, the Caterpillar Company. And not only that, became the first female president of the Caterpillar Foundation, and has used her unique point of view to impact lives around the world, and became one of the most powerful women in philanthropy. She has turned her story of really perseverance into an interesting book called Looking Up, How a Different Perspective Turns Obstacles into Advantages. We had the first part of our conversation in our last podcast. In this portion, part two, we talk about how she became one of the most powerful women in philanthropy as the president of the Caterpillar Foundation, and just what happened at that point. Did the focus of the foundation change or shifted after you took over? Did you see, did you take your own personal experience and say, hey, you know, I can do something for this, that, and the other thing too?
The Together Stronger platform is what we created, which really talks about all the work the partners do in the areas that we are working in. And also, we have to use the Caterpillar Foundation name to talk about the work, because around the world, people know Caterpillar. And if they feel that water is important because we made investments in water, then we're, you know, making even more of an impact, or bringing awareness to what these issues are that people are dealing with. And then it's funny, people say, oh, Michele, you work at Caterpillar, you're Republican. And then they go, oh, the foundation, you must be Democrat. And I go, you know, I'm a collaborator. We all need to work together to help solve, you know, society's biggest issues. And so we really started working on root cause of issues. What's causing girls not going to school? And a lot of the times it was they were out searching for water while the boys went to school. And another change was we got into advocacy. We would advocate for girls to get an education. We would advocate that girls should not be married at age 10, for instance. Uh-huh. And so advocacy was another big change. So we did make changes, and the social impact really increased with the changes. Uh-huh.
How did you measure success? How could you tell that the money and the efforts that you were putting to something was actually making a difference and making and working?
So that was another change. The grantees would have to present a measurement plan, an impact report is what we called it, of what their hope was, whether it was a change in knowledge or behavior, if it was an education grant, or if it was access to water, you know, how many people were you going to serve, things like that. And then every year they would have to send us an impact report and directly report out where the dollars went and what the impact was. And so it was accountability. I treated the foundation like a business. We looked at grants based on ROI, the return on investment. So we wanted the most bang for our money because, you know, the employees, dealers, and customers worked hard for the company to make that revenue, and then, you know, turn some of it over to the foundation to invest. So it was important that we got the best return for our dollar, and that was through impact reports of our grantees.
What about how Caterpillar Incorporated, the corporate end of Caterpillar.
Yep.
Caterpillar. How did they look upon the foundation once you took over? Did they? I don't know. I'm guessing that the foundation relies on the corporate side for its funding. And then, what was their role? What was corporate's role in the foundation itself?
So the company is the sole funder of the foundation. You are correct.
Mm-hmm.
But the company has to be hands off of the foundation. Those are two separate entities.
Mm-hmm.
So the foundation had a board of its own.
Okay.
And so we were directed by the foundation board.
Okay. So Caterpillar itself didn't say you will put X amount of dollars toward this, that, or the other thing.
No, they just funded the dollar amount, and then it was the foundation board that would help decide, the areas of focus, etc.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How did they treat?
It has to remain separate.
Mm-hmm. How did they treat you once you came in? What was the atmosphere like? How did you feel treated?
You mean when I started at CAT or the foundation?
Both.
When I started at CAT, well, that was soon to be 32 years ago, and I have to tell you, I was the only little person, and there may be one or two now over the 100,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
But there weren't many people like me at the time, 30 years ago. So I was very blessed that I got a job, and I had great opportunities at Caterpillar. I worked my way up, and I kept working hard and was given opportunities and took them. And then when the foundation came open, it's the one I really wanted over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was well suited because of my experience, with all the other disciplines at Caterpillar, understood it very well. Because of my outside work, I understood the nonprofit sector pretty well and learned a lot more about it once I got in the foundation. So, the CEO picked the position, and he had confidence that I could do it and was very supportive. And, the team was great.
Mm-hmm.
And the partners are great. So it really, was not an issue in anything.
What did you learn through your time there? What lessons did you learn?
Well, I really learned appreciation, that you have to work at the grassroots and the grass tops to make exponential change. What I mean by that is we still have to support the food pantries and food banks, etc., for example, to handle the day-to-day needs. But you also have to work at the top, which is the advocacy space and advocate for the reasons that people aren't getting enough food, for instance. And when you can change people's minds by advocating, and eventually laws change because of your advocacy, you really can make exponential change. For instance, we've been involved with the One campaign, which is advocacy, and they helped advocate in the country of Mali that 10% of the land be given to women farmers. And that will leapfrog the women farmers into being able to support themselves by having land to farm, and that will impact the family greatly.
Mm-hmm.
So I really learned to appreciate working at the grass tops all the way through to the grassroots.
Mm-hmm. What did Michele Sullivan learn about herself there?
I've always known I was very fortunate to be born in the country I was born into, for education, healthcare, born into the family that I was born into, who supported me in every way. And as I traveled and really saw people in poverty, which I did not grow up in poverty, and yet they were as resilient as anybody I met, and I look up to them to this day, that it just reinforced my looking up perspective that we all have value. And it was and still is important to me that we continue to make an impact in each other's lives.
Mm-hmm. Michele, What can't you do? I mean, as a little person, I think the only thing that I'm thinking of, what can't she do in life? The only thing you can't do really is slam dunk a basketball, you know? That's probably the only thing.
You're right. I mean, you know, my hips are not good at all, so I use crutches to get around. So, you know, steps and so forth. I mean, when I travel, it's quite challenging, but I still do it and will continue to do it. And I travel the world and speak because I want people to know that if I can do this, you can do this. Meaning, you can see one of my issues, but most challenges that people are facing, you can't see, whether they're having financial challenges or they're dealing with infertility or their sexuality or they're getting a divorce. You never know what people are going through. And so always reach out to know that you're part of their kitchen table if they need you. And also give them a benefit of the doubt for the day if someone seems to be bothered by something. You know, obviously something's going on. And also you have to do the same yourself. You have to let your guard down and you have to make the first move sometimes, and asking for help is a strength, not a weakness. That's what my TED Talk is about.
Right.
And you have to be open. So we all can make an impact, and it's important that we have the perspective to look up to everyone. And in the world today, we're getting more divisive by the day instead of coming together.
Indeed. When people put down the book Looking Up, I think you've essentially said what you want people thinking. What you know?
Yep.
What do you want? Let me ask you about relationships. Are you married?
No.
Have you ever been married?
No.
Is relationships a problem? Being a little person?
No.
No. Okay. All right.
I mean, you may have more long-distance relationships because, you know, there's not a lot of little people. It's about 1 in 20,000 to 25,000 births. So you may have a long-distance relationship, but that could happen if you're average size or little, right?
Sure.
So it's not really any different than anybody else.
I was just wondering, have you had relationships with average size people, or is that not a factor?
It's not a factor.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I was just curious. It's
whoever you fall in love with.
There you go. All right. Good deal. What's next for you now? You've done all this. You've been a success in business, in nonprofit. You've got a book out, a TED Talk out. What's next?
You know, I want to continue to impact people, and the speaking is really ramping up, and you know, I want to continue to do that. And you know, right now that's the short-term goal, and we'll see where that goes. All
right. Ted, the book is out by HarperCollins. And is there a website, aside from your TED Talk, which I've got you go to TED.com for that, is there a website for you?
Yeah, you know, the book comes out February 25th. And if you go, you can pre-order it on lookingup.com. And for every book that's purchased on that pre-order page on lookingup.com, HarperCollins Leadership will donate a book to a not-for-profit on your behalf.
Oh, good deal. That's cool.
Yeah, lookingup.com.
Lookingup.com. Good deal. Michele Sullivan, this has been fun talking to you. You're a great inspiration. I wish you much success with the book. Thanks for taking some time out.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Thanks,
Keep
Michele.
Looking up.
I will.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye now. Bye.
Bye.
Michele Sullivan's book, Looking Up: How a Different Perspective Turns Obstacles into Advantages. It is published by HarperCollins Leadership. It is available now, and you can go to your favorite bookstore and pick it up there. Also, I will tell you that she was featured recently on People Magazine's website, people.com, and she was talking about not only herself, but also about the story that went viral about the Australian boy who was bullied, and everybody was trying to get him to Disneyland and her perspective on that story. So you can check that out at people.com. And that, my friends, is going to be it for this edition of Conversation Collage. We have on our next edition a talk with Judge Douglas